The order. Oh,
Mayor Gillespie, Councilman Bowles, Chairman Smith,
here.
Vice Chair Gardner,
Here.
Chief Johnson,
Here.
Ms. Carpenter,
Here.
Mr. Hindman, Mr. McAuley, and Mr. Nelson.
Okay. Our first order is Horace Davis Properties, zoning of M1. It was held on 5/21 and 6/18. We did have a subcommittee meeting. This thing's loud, isn't it? And at that meeting, they did present to us some ideas that are, I think, are acceptable to a lot of both parties and the neighborhoods, the citizens in the community. I would like to. There's going to be a public hearing at the next meeting if we can hold it till then. That thing's just echoing. I'm sorry. And if I can have a motion to hold it till the August meeting, then we can bring it up. Bring it up. All right.
Second.
Just a second. Okay. All in favor? Is there anything else we need to do with that? And I don't want to. Does it sound just off, or is it just?
Sounds
great. Does it? Okay.
we usually get complaints that we can't hear. Today, apparently, we were doing really good.
Okay.
Just to make sure that that I think you stated pretty well that they've come back with a sketch plan, and
correct.
The process is that sketch plan has not been reviewed by the full board, hasn't gone through a process to be put on the agenda, and so that sketch plan, since it seemed to be agreeable both to neighborhood representatives and to the owner, suggests that be brought up on the August meeting.
Okay.
Since the zoning changed significantly as a part of that sketch plan, we're going to send that back out to meet the state advertising requirements. Send that back out for re-advertisement, another hearing. So that sketch plan and that hearing will correspond on the August meeting.
All right, that sounds great.
And so what y'all got is, I think you have a motion. Did they vote? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we've already made the motion and passed it, I guess. Didn't we?
Yeah, and so that basically just held it. And what I would expect to do, or expect y'all to be able to do at the next meeting, is to have a substitute motion to bring the new zoning scheme and substitute that for what's been tabled a couple of times.
Okay.
Excuse me, held a couple of times.
Okay.
So again, all this will meet again at the August meeting. There will be another public hearing, and we'll have a full staff analysis of that sketch plan.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
The new business, we have the rezoning from FAR, Forest Agricultural and Recreation, to R5, patio garden homes. It is in the Oaks of Buena Vista. It is a public hearing. Larry Speaks and Associates are the individuals. And just briefly, so if there's anybody here that has any questions, why don't you tell us what you have in mind, Mr. Gillen?
Yes. Thank you. Greg Gillen with Larry Speaks and Associates. You're familiar with the Oaks of Buena Vista that's been built out all the way basically to this point, the Plat 4B, which you approved last week.
Yes, sir.
This was the preliminary that we went through last month that's been approved. And you also approved this layout of this Plat 6 that we call last month. But
yes, sir.
We've been going through the annexation zoning process. And so basically we're just trying to zone this particular area right here.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
It is a public hearing, and we've found out what is going on. And is there any member of the public would like to come up and address the commission? You are encouraged to come and talk to us. And if anybody has any questions, come forward now. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Come on and sign in, and we would love to hear from you. But tell us who you are and where you live, and I'm excited. Somebody's coming.
Is that speaker out there working?
It is, yes.
I mean, I hardly could hear Joel up our speakers.
Try yours, see if it's,
I'm Karen Vaughn.
yes, ma'am.
And I live at 623 Vintage Way,
Yes, ma'am.
so I'm a few houses from this area.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have questions as to how many units are proposed, and
Okay. All right,
I don't really know anything about it, but
that's
our
fine.
neighbor.
Okay. Any other questions before he swaps over?
How many, 12 units
12 units, yes, ma'am.
at the end?
Yeah, once we start with, that's the existing cul-de-sac, and we just push the cul-de-sac back an extra, it's about 400 feet, 300 feet.
So you think the access in and out is doable for that area? Traffic?
Yes, ma'am. We will find out, we will address those concerns with Mr. Duke, and we will make sure we find out any questions that you have.
Are they the same type units that are existing?
Yes, and the same building.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions, concerns? Any activity? Okay. Then the public hearing is hereby closed. I guess we can read this in. Would you care to read it in? I know you're a victim of being right by me.
Zoning request to R5, 630 Vintage Way, the Oaks of Buena Vista LLC petitioner, July 16th, 2015. Whereas the Oaks of Buena Vista LLC is the owner of the property described in Attachment A, whereas the property to be zoned is located outside the city limits off Vintage Way, and whereas the petitioner wishes to zone the property to R5 Patio Garden Homes. And whereas a public hearing on the proposed zoning was held by the Prattville Planning Commission on July 16th, 2015. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby recommends the zoning of said property to R5. So moved.
I'll turn that back on so the people listening can hear me.
Yes, sir. Just to echo what Mr. Gillen said, you recall that at your June meeting, you approved the extension of the street and the 12 lots contingent upon both annexation and zoning. And unfortunately, those did not correspond exactly, but the annexation is going before the City Council next week. This this zoning recommendation will chase behind that. The proposal is, of course, consistent with the subdivision you saw last time. It's consistent with the overall sketch plan for the property, and the length of the cul-de-sac is no longer is still within your standards.
Okay.
And, as you'll also recall, there are turning lanes on County Road 4 that are being built as a part of the I think it's phase 4 of this subdivision. So all of those are being done to manage traffic. The subdivision has stub outs. There's not a likely time at which they'll be connected, or we can't identify that at this point, but there are stub outs in certain places in the subdivision to allow for traffic management in the future. Cul-de-sac, as I stated, the cul-de-sac is well within your standards and should not be an issue.
Thank you. Is there any questions from Mr. Duke? Yes, ma'am.
Really, it's for Mr. Gillen, kind of. Is this pretty much all the property that the developer has?
Not
At this
quite,
time?
not quite. We submitted the plans in here on, this is what we refer to as Plat 5, and this whole area right here is left. And
It's
that's
still
it.
left? But I mean,
That's correct.
that's it?
That's
what
it,
we're looking
that's
at.
it. The city actually owns the property in this area, and this is all a part of the Auburn Experimental Belt. So this is, you'll see me one more time for this section here.
Any other questions for either Mr. Duke or Mr. Gillen? All right. Well, are we ready to vote on it? I take it we are. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. I believe that passes. Okay. Number 2. Let's see, that was number 2. Number 3 is a replat of Hearthstone Estates, Plat 1A in District 7. There's nothing to read in. It is a simple replat. Looks like 2 lots together. Tell us about it.
Yes, sir, you are correct. You have a replat of lots 87 and 88 of the Hearthstone Estates Plat Number 1 subdivision. This replat is certainly well within zoning, and the city has no objection to the replat.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I have a
Yes,
question. I
sir.
just want to make sure. We're taking 1 lot and putting it into 2, or 2 and putting it into 1?
We're taking 2 lots and creating 1 lot. So we're basically making a larger lot. As I understand from the owner of the 2 lots, the jog in the rear property line creates kind of an issue for them as far as setback, and so the solution was to buy 2 lots.
Okay.
So, and
That's
for
what I just-
city zoning, we can't develop across that lot line, so we ask them to replat it.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Duke on this matter? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. Or issue? Those opposed, like sign. I believe that passes. Thank you. All right, now we have Midtown Oaks subdivision plat 1. It is the final plat for that. Let me see what else we got on that. George Drive. Y'all ready to go? Go ahead. Would you read that information? Hang on one second. We'll be right with you.
Resolution, final plat, Midtown Oak subdivision, plat 1, July 16, 2015, whereas Goodman Building Company is a developer of Midtown Oak subdivision, plat 1, and whereas the proposed development is located inside the city limits of the east end of George Drive, and whereas a sketch plan of proposed development was approved on May 15, 2014, and whereas a preliminary plat for the proposed subdivision was approved on September 18, 2014, and whereas the city department heads have reviewed and commented on the proposed development. Now therefore it be resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby approve the submitted final plat of Midtown Oak subdivision, plat number 1. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, now tell us about this. You go right ahead.
My name is Judy Jones with Goodwin Mills and Kaywood, and we're requesting to develop approximately 31 lots following I think it's R3 zoning, 65-foot lots, the extension of George Drive.
Okay. And so right there at George Drive. That's plat 1. Okay. Are there any questions? There we are. Questions, concerns? Any questions for Joel? Do you have anything to say? Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I'll go ahead and tell you that construction on this subdivision is substantially complete, or meets the city's requirements for substantial completeness. We have a few very minor punch list items, erosion control being probably the most important one at this point. But we would recommend approval. We will just simply hold the plat unsigned until we get those items dealt with.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Duke? Yes, sir.
I may just be looking at this wrong. The first page that you provided, this overhead photography or plat, shows a connection on Honeysuckle, and the next page, which is just the drawing, doesn't show that connection. Is there a change there?
Yes, it looks like, and this is a mistake out of my office, it looks like we have the old sketch plan in the aerial photograph that is roughly accurate, but that connection of a Honeysuckle actually comes down and connects to the, basically extends down and connects where it says Plat 3. Chief.
Okay.
And so that, and I believe the phasing is a little off here too.
Okay.
So
But it's the same as what we had.
right. The second phase will have this plat connect to Sunset Drive. So
Okay.
basically they'll connect all the way through from George to Sunset at the next phase.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Duke, I'm curious to know which items are on the punch list.
As I stated, I think they still have a sewer test to run, and that's really timing. That has to be in the ground a certain number of days. In fact, when I was there this morning, the contractor was doing a mandrel test through the sewer before asking the city to come back. Erosion control is the other. Did have a question about some height of the asphalt, and they're aware of that, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get that brought back into spec.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. I believe that passes. Okay. Next one is the final plat, Rochester's Hill. Chief, would you read that in for me, please, sir? Absolutely. Thank you.
Resolution, final plat, Rochester Hills, July 16, 2015, whereas Rochester Hill LP is the owner of Rochester Hills, and whereas proposed development is located inside the city limits off Heather Drive, and whereas the preliminary plat for the proposed subdivision was approved on January 15, 2015, contingent that a ROW to the north entrance of property is made available for future access, and whereas the city department heads have reviewed and commented on the proposed development, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby approves a submitted final plat of Rochester Hills. I so move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. All right. Mr. Duke, or you want to, who wants to go? Mr. Gillen? All right, Mr. Gillen.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We're seeking final plat approval of the Heather Drive extension for Rochester Hills Plat Number 1. Curb and gutters have been installed, asphalt has been placed, water line installed. There's very little sewer improvements except for a relocation in the back that's been completed. We still have about a section of about 300 or 400 feet of of sidewalk to place, and then we can, at that point, backfill it and grass it. They were finishing the inlet tops today, and the rain slowed us down just a little bit on the sidewalk, but we're right there at finished. A little bit more work to do on McQueen Smith with just striping.
Okay, Mr. Duke?
Yes, sir. By the city's subdivision regulation definition, they have achieved substantial completion on this subdivision. As Mr. Gillen stated, there are these few items that are still outstanding. With substantial completion, unless there's some issue that we foresee as far as holding them up from completion, we generally recommend approval. And if you, as you've seen today, I've done that. I've recommended in the write-up, excuse me. But again, that's up to the board as far as when y'all have the final say. Basically, your regulations say you can grant approval, you don't have to, and just echo Mr. Gillen's statement. There are items that are still outstanding.
Do we need to make it contingent upon approval from?
You can. There are two basic approvals here. One is we're not going to allow the apartment complex to have a certificate of occupancy unless these items are completed, because it's being built separate approval, but it's being built concurrent with the subdivision street. So there's a second level of approval, but we also would not sign the plat until these items are done. So,
Okay.
so you can make that a contingency if you wish, but we're just going to hold it till.
What was it? Yes, go ahead.
The right-of-way to the north entrance, is that?
It is an item which we just carried through to this resolution so that it's basically known that it's part of the
Just wanted to
approval.
make sure that-
And so, it was basically stated that there would be an area left open so that future access could be granted. There was no requirement of access at this time.
Right, but I just wanted to make sure that.
Have we cleared up the ownership of that particular piece of property?
Yes, and the ownership is still rests with Aronoff.
Okay.
And just to review, and this may be too much inside baseball, but when Heather Drive, which is the street in question, Heather Drive as it runs or has been identified beside Russell Dewitt Center, it was owned by Aronoff. It was not transferred to Russell Dewitt Center, but it was a part of Russell Dewitt Center's contract with Aronoff that road be built. And part of the contract was that once it was completed, it would be basically transferred to the city. This dates back to roughly late 80s, early 90s. And I apologize, I wasn't prepared to really
No, that's fine.
talk about that, but those dates are roughly about that time period, but neither Aronoff nor the city or Russell can find anywhere where that transfer ever took place. And it is not a part of any plat, so it is not a platted public street that was not turned over for maintenance. It was intended to be a deed transfer to the city, and that never took place.
Okay.
So it's been identified by the tax office for years as public right-of-way, but it is not in any way public right-of-way. That is not to say that it could not be probably obtained from Aronoff, but at this point, that's something we would have to look at very closely.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Duke or Mr. Gillen? Well, are we ready to vote? Yes. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Now that gets us through, and let me check. That does get us through everything that's here. Is there any miscellaneous items?
The only item I would bring up is just to put something in your thinking. We now have a full complement of members. I think the mayor's office still has a few appointments to catch up on, but I don't anticipate any changes in membership. And one of the things that I would like to do out of our office is to try to have some training in the next couple of months. To start with some basics. Some of you will fall asleep because you know them, but others, first time around, but it doesn't hurt to back up and hear that. We've been doing these trainings with the Board of Zoning Adjustment in the last couple of years, and we'll just start with basics of planning, basics of subdivision, basics of zoning, and then I think there's opportunities to go on from there. We'll also invite the City Council to come because there's a good bit of intersection, especially at zoning, with y'all and the City Council. And this council is fairly new. Most of them, this is their first term, so they also need some catching up. So if y'all will just kind of, if you don't mind, just informally afterwards, give me some idea of what times are good, daytime, evenings, whichever one we want to do. We'll make it as comfortable as possible, even though it's still a public meeting. We'll try not to do it here.
Okay.
It's someplace a little more amenable to conversation and learning. So thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything else? Meeting adjourned.